Okay.
Looking for somebody to take minutes. Recognize or verify that item 6A exists. Here's an extra agenda.
Sure.
Just simply a 6A item to get rid of one.
Okay.
Right.
So on approval of the agenda,
I make a motion to approve the agenda with the addition of 6A chair appointment.
Second.
motion carried. On the minutes from February 15th,
I would move approval.
Second.
motion by Bill, second. So we have somebody taking minutes?
Well, it'll be recorded.
But somebody has to draft the minutes eventually.
She can watch it. Jenny can watch it.
You know, as long as you got the recording, we'll be following the agenda anyway, as far as that goes, but
We just have to use our.
Why don't I'll jot down a few notes anyway.
just at least who made the motions, please?
Yeah, that's what I was gonna say. The approval of agenda was who?
Linda and Beth.
Beth.
And then on the agenda approval, minutes approval, it was,
Bill and Teresa.
on that motion to approve those minutes? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. Any public participation? None. Move on to old business. 5A is discussion possible action regarding the Edgerton Fire Protection District, Lakeside Fire Rescue, transition status. Not a lot of new stuff. I mean, this is kind of the house cleaning stuff. Physically, the ambulance is almost here for both Edgerton and the Milton ones ordered. Sometime in the next 30 days, the lettering of the east side vehicles.
Sinorama indicated they've got most of the lettering in. They're waiting for just a couple of other ones, but yeah.
Other than what's on the agenda, anything really relevant to discuss on moving forward with 5 bugles?
Yeah, I mean, I always kind of divide things into people, buildings, and equipment. So on the people side, we're going to be actually, it closes this evening. We did an internal recruitment, which really is aimed at our paid on call and paid on premise employees for the full-time openings that are still open. We have 3 right now that are open. And we have quite a few candidates for those positions. So we'll be making those appointments probably early next week, and then they would start, our next payroll period starts on Monday the 29th. So anybody that we extend full-time offers to would be starting on the 29th. We anticipating that we may need a couple of external candidates, AKA paramedics, because we don't have a lot of the paid on call paramedics that would want a full-time job with us because they have full-time jobs elsewhere. We have one person that we've already extended a position to, and as I've talked at a couple of meetings about this, it's not that we gave up trying to find paramedics in Rock County, but if any exist, they are buried under rocks that we haven't figured out how to turn over yet. They're just, you know, Beloit's looking, Janesville's looking, Town of Beloit's looking, we're looking. So we actually expanded kind of our search parameters, and the individual we extended the offer to earlier this week will now be the 3rd person we have hired out of Waukesha County. And we've also had an expression of interest out of Winnebago County, Illinois. So we'll just keep trying to find ways to find good quality individuals. This young lady that we extended an offer to is an extremely strong candidate. Just, you know, an absolutely perfect candidate for the job. So
We used to discourage that with paid on call and volunteers, but these are full-time offers.
yeah, these are full-time positions. So we're getting very close to being at full staff, which is a really good thing. For the non-paramedic positions, we have 2 open right now, and the city and the town have authorized us to do an overhire. I think we talked about that before. And so we have 3 openings, and I think we have 7 candidates for that. So that's a really good thing as well. So that's the people piece. In terms of the building piece, we're going, the committee, the advisory committee from the board, Chairman Meyer is on it. Doug Kenny, who's from the Edgerton side, is on it. And those are the 2 board members that are on the advisory committee, and then Brandon and myself. Several of us are going down to St. Louis next week. There are 2 major conferences every year on how to build fire stations. They are very specialized conferences, right? And they're very good. One of them is next week, and then the other one is later in the year. So it's kind of outside our window. So we're going to be down there next week on that. 5 Bugles is, they actually are in the process of drafting up the formal proposal, the board did approve moving forward with the final design phase, which would then lead up to the engineering phase. Quote for that, Brian, I think it's what, 228,000, I
For
think?
all the facilities.
For all the facilities, yes, and that includes the town of Milton
Town hall.
Town Hall in that project. So that includes 5 buildings. The town obviously is totally responsible for the town hall project, and then our 11 municipalities will pick up the responsibility for the 4 station facilities.
Kinda, because our 5 municipalities are responsible for these 2 east side stations.
Yes,
And then the 5 on the Edgerton side are responsible for the remodel, all 11 for,
for Newville.
considering
Yeah.
Newville. So it is
Yes.
kind of complicated for me.
It's a rather long formula, but we have it all broke out.
Who was the 4th person on the committee?
Oh,
Or the-
Deputy Chief Brandon Whitmore.
No,
It's an advisory committee.
Brian of the advisory committee.
Oh, Brian, and then a gentleman by the name of Doug Kenny, Kenney. He's an alternate member to the board from the city of Edgerton,
Okay.
and then Brandon and myself. Yeah, so that's where we are kind of on the buildings, and then from an equipment standpoint, it's a later agenda item in terms of the resolution of the assets and all that kind of stuff, but equipment-wise, we're doing really, really well. I mean, there's no big purchase, well, other than the ambulances, I guess I should say, yep, and Brian commented. Brandon and I were down in Sterling, Illinois on Friday last week doing the final inspection on the 2 new ambulances. They are looking really good. They are nice vehicles. They really are. And then ambulances right now are 2.5 years out. If we literally ordered it today, we wouldn't see it for 2.5 years. So the board gave me approval 2 weeks ago, whenever that was.
To spec at least one out? was
Yeah,
it?
to go ahead and put our name in the second of, you guys kind of remember this, there were 2 ambulances. We're gonna go ahead and put it on order. The good news is, we have a really good relationship with this particular vendor. There is no commitment, that if we somehow decide that we don't want it, they're actually happier with us because they'll end up being able to turn around and sell it to somebody else for more than they're selling it us to. So we did, last Friday, I signed the paperwork to put another one in their schedule, so we can get on the list.
These 2 will be coming in the next month pending the vendor that does the lettering for
Yep.
for
Yep.
them.
Yep, and the biggest delay right now is the 2-way radios. The radios are all on back order. And so we're working through trying to figure out how to get that taken care of.
And then recall, so we have 2 in-house on the east side now. With the new one coming in, is the plan to dispose of one of them?
Yes,
And then assuming that putting another new one on order, it will come in when these 2 stations are online. Hopefully that timing works out.
Brian's hit it right on the head. The plan is when the new Milton East station opens up, that should line up with when then the next new ambulance would be coming in. Yep, that is the plan.
So we did not prepay for the ambulance we put on order. Do we know the final cost to get it? Like, the city and the town will split the cost of that initially and then be made whole by the other municipalities here on the east side, but in the meantime, we need to make a check, sort of is COD deliveries somewhat.
So Foster still needs to give us the final accounting. We did make a couple of minor changes, right? So it'll be $1 or $2 here or there. Actually, maybe a reduction because we took something out that we'd already paid for. So yeah, Foster needs to give us that final accounting. Then we need to apply the two grants, because I think everybody realizes that the Milton Commission obtained a DHS grant, as did the old Edgerton Commission. We'll apply those to the costs and then come up with what the settlement costs are, you know, what we need to come up with. And
is it the reality though that we would pay the full amount and we would wait for the grant matching funds to come back to us on the last half of the grant payment?
yes,
Because we did receive half of the
yeah,
grant monies, that's in-house. But the other half is like, show us that you received it.
we have to show them a receipt. And so, yes, I mean,
So we might have to
that's
pay
what our
and wait.
district reserves, we've got enough money, right, in reserve to go ahead and pay the bill so we can take delivery of the ambulance. Then we'll settle up with the municipalities on the
Okay,
back end.
okay.
Yeah, yeah, no delay, no holdup
Yeah,
there.
I was just worried that our checks would not hold up for receiving
No,
the
it won't,
ambulance.
no, it won't.
Also
Just a
won't.
brief conversation, if I might, regarding our old ambulance. Is there a plan to only run one ambulance out of the new east side Milton and the new west side Milton when that occurs?
So we will have 3 ambulances on in essence, the eastern division. Where we put that spare one between Milton East and Milton West, probably gonna be based on where we've got garage space. But there will be 3 ambulances in the eastern division.
I guess I'm just wondering if it's something that we should sell right away, or does it become more of a liability to hold on to because we've run the tires off of this and the tires aren't something that we should replace, if that, just in analogy.
Let me explain, we have 2 now here on this side. When the new one comes in, we'll have 3, but if we dispose of one right away, one's on order.
But that could be at Newville, or it could be at
No,
Edgerton.
no. That new one that I just signed the paper, that will be in the eastern division. So it'll either be at Milton East or Milton West.
Is there a
It will-
necessity to have I'm just wondering if we should sell our old one.
Yes,
Yeah.
Okay.
yes.
Because Edgerton's receiving a new one too.
Well,
Yeah. Again, there will be 3
No, and I get that. And I appreciate that
Yeah.
for the folks that are listening. I
Yep.
appreciate that we will still have 3 ambulances. That is an important detail.
Yes.
But I'm
it's
wondering if
important
it's important also for us to hang on to our assets instead of selling them in the event that 2.5 years turns into 3 or 4. You know what I mean?
No, and that's a good point. There are several good reasons to go ahead and sell it at this point. It has a manual patient loading system versus the automated one. I think most everybody will tell you one workers' comp claim for somebody throwing a back out will far exceed any cost savings if we got in trouble. If in fact, and I understand where your question is coming from, if in fact we got to that point and for some reason we needed an extra one, the manufacturer we work with, we have the ability to get loaner ambulances from them. And we have actually done that through the years when we had a situation a couple of years ago where we had 2 ambulances go down simultaneously. We got a loaner from them. So we have plenty of flexibility if that situation were to present itself.
And the one we're proposing to get rid of, put out of service, in other words, is one that, a chassis that some time ago we had some lemon issues with. I haven't heard anything recently in the last year or 2, but right away when we re-chassied it, we had some lemon issues.
no, but they do
it's
have
appropriate to sell it.
significant concerns about the manual.
Yeah, yeah.
Very.
There's lots of reasons to go ahead and sell it.
Pretty much it for now on that kind of report. And then we covered 5B, the replacement order status. We needed to define at least how we were gonna, could we receive it and have the money waiting for them type of thing, and you've explained, we'll shuffle.
We'll cover them, or the municipalities will cover them, and then we'll settle up with the actual
We'll do a
individual.
shell game. Anything else on 5B? Otherwise, we'll move on to 5C. Discussion and possible action regarding the financial balances, for 2022, budgets, any money left from 2022 budget, the 2023 budget in general, surplus, surplus 2% funds and 102 funds. So kind of a few things here. I think there's a consensus, and there has been a consensus, that we'll use a lot of this money in transition costs. So kind of like just leave it there for the most part, except the 2% funds, we would, when it's appropriate and the state has blessed the process, we would transfer all the 2% funds so that a district can actually use the monies. We're probably not gonna be in a position to use any of those 2% funds outside of the new expanded district, so looking for the commission to approve on paper, the transfer of all the 2% funds. And the FAP, well, so I'm not as clear about the use of the FAP funds. Was there an intention to use that as part of transition costs, or what's the right way to address that conversation?
So you can think of the FAP funds being very similar to what the 2% dues money are. There are specific rules as to what the FAP funding can be used for, which basically means there are things it can't be used for just because they're not authorized. I think the cleanest is to do whatever we do with the 2%, we do with the FAP, and then just leave that clean. Then in the surplus monies that are there, we'll use that for the transition costs. But the FAP money is very specific to training and particular supply, EMS supplies. Those will always be expenses that we will incur. So I think if you moved both the 2% and the FAP, then it's very clean. We would spend those for the things that money is authorized to be spent for.
And I believe that there's somewhere in the neighborhood of $150-some thousand of 2% funds. The FAP, the 102 funds are a larger number.
Yeah, I would have to defer to Kelsey. I didn't bring that folder in with me, but
Yeah, I was hoping
There
she'd be
is,
here so we could at least understand what we're considering here. So if yeah.
Neither of those are getting larger, right?
No, because this 2023 2% funds are going solely to the Lakeside.
yes, the
District.
2023 FAP and 2% will come to the Lakeside District direct.
So we could move to transfer the existing balance of both the FAP and 2% funds to the Lakeside District.
I'll
So-
make that motion.
I'll second it.
Motion, Linda, second by Teresa, to transfer the 2% funds and the FAP or 102 funds to the Lakeside District. Is that appropriate direction?
Could I have some discussion, please?
Yes, I got a couple comments too.
I just have two thoughts. You had said something, Brian, about once the state has blessed this, has the state arrived at that blessing for us to be able to do this?
Well, we deliberately wanted to wait a couple months since February because there needed to be a clarification that the state was okay with that.
State is okay with that, and again, I don't know that I would call it blessing, because I don't think they thought they were blessing anything. They were just answering the question of how would we handle that. Here's how you handle it. But they made it very clear that money could only be used for the things that it is allowed to be used for. The fact that you're transferring it because of the consolidation integration does not mean that you can use that money for anything other than what it was intended for.
Which makes complete sense,
It
and
absolutely
thank you.
does.
The other thought process is if we could just, and I'm in complete agreement with the motion, I'm just wondering if we could have a notification of what those amounts are once the transfer has been accomplished.
So this is, it doesn't have a date on it, but I got this from Kelsey a month or two ago. And so FAP is 102 account.
Yes, yes.
Yeah, so December 2022, she shows that the 2% account was $152,465, and that the 102 account was $24,687. We have a larger fund balance in the checkbook by far. I mean, it's a much bigger number than that. But she specifically states in this report that that's what the two numbers were as of December 2022.
As of December 31st, do you think, or?
So this was printed well after January 1st, so I assume that it was through December 2022.
And kind of the working agreement that we've had, expenditures that are authorized, we would give those bills to Kelsey and then she would pay them. There was a protective clothing, I think it was 10,197. Why I remember that number, I don't know. But we gave that bill to Kelsey. She paid it out of the 2% monies. The working agreement that we would have is once those monies, if the commission chooses, once those monies were officially transferred to Lakeside, we would just stop giving the invoices to Kelsey and we just pay it direct.
So it probably, because Kelsey will probably look to these minutes and be like, okay, what did you authorize me to do? And
I would say that we need to forge ahead with being intentionally nebulous. I don't think we should attach numbers to this, Brian.
well, in fact, yeah,
The balance is,
As of December 30.
I would make it balances as of
As of
today.
as of today.
Yeah, as of today. Cause I know there's things that have been paid out of that
Yes.
account
Yeah.
since
yeah,
December.
there's a smaller amount of that left because of what's been taken out of it this year, but there is a significant amount of balance besides those two funds that we,
Yeah.
with this motion, we're authorizing to be transferred.
But we had also talked about at one point in time, once this transition and the costs are taken care of returning some back to each of the municipalities.
Well, I think
We would have never had
So
a claim
it's
to either of these accounts.
6 of one, half a
Right.
dozen of another, but it's because those municipalities will be responsible for whatever that money might be spent on. But we're talking, and some of those monies have been used this year out of the remaining balance.
Yes, they have been. A lot of the, like the re-signage, those kinds of expenses have all come out of that pool. I mean, again, approved by, the chairs of the two entities.
Because at the first of this year, they're with the 2% and the 102 account and other reserve funds, there was like $500,000. So there is still some reserve funds that the conversation still is wrapping around paying for some transition costs that we're responsible for, the east side municipalities. And we've had some brief discussions, I have had at least some brief discussions with Lima, Johnstown, and Harmony about this, in that they're asking for the numbers, what do they owe as part of their transition commitments. And part of the discussions I had with them was, well, whatever those numbers are going to be or will be, are probably going to be reduced slightly by taking some of this reserve funds and paying for transition costs. So that conversation is not finished.
And I'll just tie a couple of dots together. The overhires we've been talking about, there was some discussion, right? Because this dates back, really, the conversations with Al Hulick, who's been kind of my sounding board financially. We don't want to get to the point of the month before we open up Milton East, now going out and trying to hire 9 people, right? Because So the thought was, or at least the suggestion, and no action tonight, right? This is just information, but the thought was, do we potentially use some of that funding to help us overhire and be ready for, bringing a couple more people on board so that when we get to the point of bringing Milton East on, we're only looking for 3 or 4 as compared to 9, something along those lines.
And that's roughly, it could be in the neighborhood of 90,000 apiece.
Yeah, loaded labor rate for a paramedic first year right now is like $92,000.
There's a motion on the floor on the transfer of these funds. Any further discussion on the motion? If not, all in favor say aye. Opposed? Motion carried. And for the record, Jim Hanlon is not here, so we're 5 commission members tonight. Back to my agenda here. Item 5D, discussion possible action regarding cost associated with the transition and merger. So part of that conversation might have been staffing up.
Is this the surplus balance? Is that the one we're on, Brian?
Yeah,
I mean, our recommendation up to this point has been to leave that money with Milton and Milton, that in the accounts where it's at. We're not suggesting at this point that we transition or asking that we transition that funding.
so when I wrote this agenda for a month ago, and it was before a month ago, so I didn't know if there was gonna be anything pertinent that came up, saying, well, do we want to use some of this money for ambulance? Do we wanna use some of this money for figuring out all of this, how we're gonna financially handle the transfer? So I quite frankly, I didn't know what the question might be tonight, but I knew that we're still trying to figure out how to shuffle the money for the transfer, real costs.
And I think you touch on a really good one. We could make a prepayment on now the 3rd ambulance that would help. I mean, we get about 5% discount when we prepay, so there's lots of things we could sort out over the next couple of months and then come back and talk about, how to handle that.
So I don't have anything else specific on this line item, unless there's something that we should be talking about. Brings us then to 5E, discussion possible action regarding the EMS service collections. So Kelsey has been collecting and transferring anything that has been coming in since
February 1st. Yep.
February 1st. And I think she's made a couple of financial, two transfers of
Yep.
monies that's come in from the previous years basically.
EMS billings can be as much as 18 months in arrears. And so in the budget, when the budget was approved, we based it on revenues that come in February going towards revenue, even though those revenues may have been generated 18 months ago. So yeah, anything since February 1st, those have been forwarded, and we're reflecting those as East Division EMS revenue. So it's defined, it's clearly in there.
So is that still, as Lakeside keeps books, when those monies get transferred from Kelsey, they stay in that separated books for the time being?
Yep, they are in the firewalled East Division. So the East Division municipalities are getting 100% of the credit for that revenue in the Eastern Division.
As a formality, maybe it's appropriate to authorize that, where Kelsey's kind of taken an assumption or a light liberty in this. It's probably not fair to Kelsey, but I think it would be more fair to Kelsey if the commission said transfer all current and future EMS collected funds, because they'd all be historical ones. So I would suggest that the commission authorize that or approve that, to be fair to Kelsey. Otherwise, she's taken an assumption or liberty to that.
And I think in your motion, it would be for EMS revenues collected on or after February 1st. Good, and I just.
For services rendered prior.
Yeah, for services rendered prior, because anything that was collected for January is actually in that surplus number, right? And, right, the only thing we were assuming was anything collected from February 1st and on would come into the Lakeside budget.
So if you agree, then a motion would be in order.
So I get it right, EMS revenues collected on or after February 1st for services rendered previous.
Yeah, because we're not rendering services anymore on our side. Would be authorized to be moved to the Lakeside Fire Rescue budget. Was that your motion?
I would move that.
Second.
I would move that EMS revenues collected on or after February 1st for services rendered prior be authorized to be moved to Lakeside Fire and Rescue.
And it was a second, Teresa?
Yes.
Motion by Bill. Yeah, again, it sounds like micromanagement, but I don't like putting somebody else outside of, who's in control, basically to be at risk of being challenged on, did you have the authority to do that? And it's not fair to them.
Well, it ends up being a lot of Mickey Mouse work
Yeah.
that she shouldn't have to do.
So, any further discussion on the motion? All in favor of the motion, say aye. Opposed? Motion carries. New business, annual chair appointment.
Brian,
Yes.
oh,
Sorry,
that's right.
I missed.
I don't have the agenda in front of me, but I know it's gotta be on there someplace.
Yeah, so we, back on, probably would have been appropriate.
D?
Yes, item D. Let's go back to item D, 5D. So we have a list of the station inventory and assets. What we've been waiting for the most part, was deciding which assets are tied to the property and which assets literally transfer to the ownership of the Lakeside Fire Rescue District. So the items, so the front page has check marks on the items that would be transferred to the ownership of the Lakeside Fire District. The other checked items in the second column are assumed to be part of the physical property and would stay with the property and its value and assets. And on the back page, including the vehicles, there's a total of all of those assets that are proposed to be transferred to the Lakeside Fire District. Nothing on this back page are values that remain with the property. We already authorized the transfer of all the vehicles. But what we didn't know yet was the actual values of the equipment and whatnot, and authorized the transfer of the equipment because we didn't have that defined, what goes and what stays. So an appropriate action tonight would be, in referring to this list, authorize the transfer of all other assets that's noted to be transferred to the Lakeside Fire District, and the assumption that the values are reasonable, and that's what the declared values would be, because the bottom line number, vehicles and all other assets, the estimated values here is $1,596,700 $1,596,749 of assets to be transferred. And then there's a formula based on the 2022 equalized value, in order for Lima, Johnstown, and Harmony to make the city and the town of Milton whole. They've been asking, for what do we owe for that value of equipment, because they've agreed to pay their equitable share of it. So if this is a good list, and if it's a good total of dollars of everything to be transferred, then this is what we can use to tell Lima, Johnstown, and Harmony they owe us as a result. They will owe for other transition costs too, but this is literally equipment and assets that are gonna be transferred.
Is that two motions that you're looking at then? One for the,
One,
items that are listed to be transferred, and then a separate one for accepting these numbers,
the values,
the values?
yeah, so that's the 2 points of what we're trying to accomplish here.
Do you want two motions, or do you?
However you wanna act on it, the values seem to be reasonable, and I think the list, you worked for quite a while on the list of what really
Yep.
should belong with the building.
Yep.
And not.
And there is total agreement, by the city of Milton, and Brian was in those meetings representing the town, as to, how these things have been divided up.
And there were conversations with both Jeremy and Chris Lucas too, as you created the list in the first place.
Yes, yeah, because the actual item list came from Jeremy and Chris and Pete and Rob and probably a whole dozen other people, yeah.
Could I just ask maybe a couple of, I realize this is discussion in advance, but of these items that will stay, essentially they're nailed down, if you will, they're going to be physical property. Who would handle, is Lakeside essentially handling the maintenance of these pieces of equipment?
So that literally was the discussion with the city and the town, the owners of the building. The city and the town will remain responsible for paying for any maintenance or repair or replacement, I guess, of those items. We're more than willing to facilitate that and coordinate, getting somebody to come in and fix the furnace or whatever it is. City and the town don't have to pick up the responsibility for facilitating it. It's just when we get a bill, that bill is gonna go to the city and the town.
Sure. Now, silly question, we're not receiving any rent from said building, are we?
No.
Okay.
And that is defined in the IGA.
Yeah,
No, and that's understood. That was really great grammar, sorry.
No. Perfect question.
Just, it's a really good reverse triple net lease then, isn't it?
well, so, in a perfect world, there magically would be today 2 new buildings we'd be operating out of.
Right.
We wouldn't be operating out of this building.
Right.
But because we haven't brought the 2 buildings yet, we have some responsibility to bring a facility that serves us.
The only other thing I would say as part of the motion, if we could, because there's just there's a little bit of tweaking on the back of this document. I think the document is fabulous. I'd love to see a date on it.
Oh,
And we can,
very good point.
and we can refer to it as, as the title states, Milton Station Building and Equipment Responsibilities. And accept the document if that's easier.
That is dated today's date. And I think it helps that in a motion, we actually name the bottom line dollar value.
Mm-hmm.
Because then you have to show how did you arrive at that.
Are you gonna make that motion?
I move to accept the document entitled Milton Station Building and Equipment Responsibilities dated today, which is 5/17/23. And the bottom line total for the grand total of the equipment value that will be part of this is $1,596,749. Noting that there is a slight discrepancy or just a clarification, there's a using a 2022 equalized value distribution on the lower portion of this document. And the left-hand column states a grand total of the equalized value totaling 168.1482%. And in actuality, once we add up those municipality numbers, it really does total 100%, not that total that's typed in. So that's just a change to this document, but otherwise the document itself is fabulous.
So
And
that explanation was not part of your motion?
nope. Moved on to hoping that it's seconded and, discussion.
I'll second the approval of the document.
Okay. So the motion in effect,
Ends with
determines.
100, or $1,596,749.
And that, and does that motion include that the list is assumed to be complete and that the items checked are hereby transferred to ownership of the Lakeside Fire District?
Yes.
Yeah, help us understand before we vote on it.
It
Yep.
doesn't include this part.
This is what
And then
they're
we-
talking about, is this
Okay.
number here was the wrong one.
So
It should be 100.
This is everything,
Yes,
Okay.
but how did it include her total of this?
because the value of everything, only,
Here's the 90.
Only the part-
32.
Oh, it's, okay.
only the
It's
part
just
that
done
would be
so-
transferred.
Okay,
Only the first column X
right.
is what's, has declared values back here.
That's,
So, all of the
I see it was subdivided.
columns, all of the columns that are checked, that stay with the municipalities, us,
Yeah,
have no declared values on the back.
okay. No, I was looking for 90,000.
Yep.
So,
And it's 58-32.
yeah. Okay,
Right.
I'll vote.
All right, all ready for the question? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. So that's a pretty valuable document, actually, that we want.
I will get you the corrected with the date on it.
This is a document we probably share directly with Lima Johnstown Harmony. Just
Yeah, I mean,
to
you-
explain what they're,
Yeah, we can, oh, absolutely,
To
yeah.
explain
it's a
to
public
them-
document, yeah. I'll let you decide
Yeah.
how you wanna, when you
Yeah.
wanna send it to them, but, yeah, absolutely.
yeah, so if you correct the typo there on the total percentages, and then
Yep. Will do.
we'll entertain that with them. All right, now moving on to new business.
I'm gonna sneak up. Thank you, folks.
Annual,
Thank you.
thank you. Annual Commission Chair Report. Appointment, rather.
I'll make a motion to, offer this position to Bill Wilson.
I'll second it.
Okay, motion and second, to appoint Bill to chair.
Is Bill okay with that? I didn't ask.
No, I'm okay,
Okay, good.
considering how many meetings we'll have.
Yeah, it's, other than some house cleaning and stuff like this, which is getting a little bit less and less, probably would be something to sign off on, with grant monies, I don't know. Or maybe signing receipt of the ambulance, you might be asked to sign receipt or whatever, or.
Send us an email. Come, you did.
Never brought an ambulance before, I brought an airplane one time.
All in favor of the motion, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. You have the floor, Bill.
And, are there any general items to come before the fire commission?
I do have a general item. I wasn't sure about, and of course Randy's already gone now. This weekend is the Civil War Living History Day, so we've got street changes and a lot of pedestrians. I just wanted to remind everybody. 1,200 students on Friday, 4 buses.
Actually, the chief was at the city council meeting and
Yes.
heard that last night, so
Yeah.
he is aware of those street closures.
Another general item, this last Thursday, the Lakeside Fire District, Edgerton Fire Protection District Board appointed their annual officers, chair, vice chair, treasurer, secretary. I think all the appointments were the same except the vice chair, which I got hit with. So I'm the vice chair of the Lakeside Fire District
No,
now.
I didn't wanna jump this one.
Well.
His binder doesn't close anymore,
Yeah.
so he's.
Yeah, it's a full binder, but they,
You need one of those suitcases you can pull along.
I used to
We
do
could give him one
that.
of the rolling ones.
I used to do that with the town board back in the day when we had hot items, but anyway, well, the vice chair, it doesn't have any duties unless the chair's not there, or if the chair isn't there to sign for
Maybe plans not to
something.
be there.
All
I
right,
told him-
any other general items?
Move to adjourn.
Second.
We have a motion and a second to adjourn.
Well,
All in favor?
I'm sorry, should we discuss if we're meeting next, just so that we've got the
Well, it's up to the chair.
We're
discussion?
gonna, I think we'll meet as
As needed.
needed,
Yeah.
so,
All right.
I will consult with,
Aye.